With great power rankings comes great responsibility. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from ESPN Central Texas. Thank you for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. Today, our power rankings, TCU, Kendall Briles, what do we do there? And another guy named Briles, his dad, Art Briles, and Baylor. There's scandal among us. There's some wild stuff that's going on with the Briles last name over the course of the last couple of weeks, and maybe there needs to be a change at TCU. But first, what you all came here for, the power rankings. Number one, and this one is easy, it's Oklahoma. Right? It doesn't change. Oklahoma, despite a close win against UCF, an ugly win against UCF, where Gus Malzahn just pissed away the game at the end of the game, still number one in the power rankings. Texas at number two. Again, it's so reluctant. And there may have been some weeks where if these two teams had multiple losses, a close win against Houston, a close win against UCF could probably drop you down a peg, could lose you a spot against a team like Kansas State, who has been so nails the last few weeks. But no, it's obvious, right? You can't argue it. Oklahoma at 1, Texas at 2. Now, let's get in the real fun. The people that we actually care about. Number 3, Kansas State. What you'll notice here is 1, 2, and 3 have stayed exactly the same. Will Howard, Avery Johnson, to me, DJ Giddens, to me, Avery Johnson's play has made Will Howard better. Will Howard is a better version of himself because of what Avery Johnson has given you as a compliment, and not only a compliment, but also as somebody who has forced Will Howard to be better. Avery Johnson's now breathing down his neck. He is the Tim Tebow of this team. And Kansas State, all of a sudden, looks like a Big 12 title contender again because their lone Big 12 loss came against also Big 12 title contender Oklahoma State. Number 4, Iowa State. How? How and why and what? They were on a bye last week, but I said it last Monday when we did the power rankings. I'll say it again. This makes absolutely zero sense. Betting scandal takes out arguably your two most key players. I don't want to say best, most key players offensively. And a guy named Rocco Becht has come in and been nails enough to put Iowa State at number 4 in this power ranking. They were going to fire their coach seemingly a couple of weeks ago. Now they're top 5. At number 5, maybe a story that to me it's not as wild as Iowa State being good, but it's still pretty insane. It's Oklahoma State. This is the most Mike Gundy season of all time. Anytime people say Mike Gundy's a terrible coach, Mike Gundy can't win, this team is bad, the offense isn't good, there's no way this roster can put it together, all of those things can be true statements. They can all still be applicable, but Oklahoma State will win in spite of that. This is an 8 or 9 win Oklahoma State team, despite having a 5-win roster. Alan Bowman is a handicapped quarterback. For weeks, the team refused to give the ball to Ollie Gordon, the best player on the team. Terrible mismanagement. A quarterback who's not that good. Offense missing explosive firepower. But here they are. A defense that gave up 33 points to South Alabama, 33-7 game that makes no sense. Because now Oklahoma State sits at number 5 in the power rankings. 1 through 5 stays the exact same this week. And number 6 is Kansas. They also got a bye week last week. This is a weird 6. Kansas, to me, had an opportunity to fight their way into the top 3 to be where Kansas State is. There was a point in time for a couple of weeks where they were ahead of Kansas State. And then Oklahoma State, that loss to OSU, put them out of the conversation. I was about to apologize to Kansas fans that I had not given them enough love, but maybe that was warranted. Because at this point, Kansas hasn't overperformed. They haven't underperformed. They have just kind of performed for what I've expected. Kansas at 6. At 7, night BYU. Let's make a very clear distinction. This is not day BYU. This is not BYU. It is night BYU at 7. They are 17-1 in their last 18 after 6 p.m. It is dumbfounding what that team does after 6, while they have basically a 500 record in every game before 6. At number 8, West Virginia. We're gonna rehire Neil Brown, sign him to an extension. CJ Donaldson's the best running back in the league, and now Now look at you. Sad, beaten up, alone, a loss to Houston, now a double-digit loss to Oklahoma State where you allowed 28 points in the fourth quarter. Gross mismanagement. West Virginia at number 8. If I'm anybody in the league right now who has to play West Virginia the rest of this year, and this is why I think the power rankings that we do here are so applicable to every team, because you get to see, all right, what's the state of the program for everybody else in a brief synopsis. If West Virginia is on your schedule moving forward, congrats. That should be a win. And I know it's going to piss off a lot of West Virginia fans, but I'm pissed off the wheels have fallen off this bad, that you were given such hope. And since then, the coaching staff has failed you. I believe this isn't exactly on a guy like Garrett Green. Sure, there have been silly, stupid mistakes made by kids, but Neil, man, 28 points in the fourth quarter. Oh, it just doesn't look good. At 9, what a disappointment in TCU. 3 points. You hired Kendall Briles to score 3 points. We'll get into that later in the show, but I was a guy for the Fort Worth Star Telegram who wrote an article. I don't know if TCU will win another game. And I think that is dramatic, but wow. Right now, TCU coming off a national championship caliber season. I get it's tough to replace a Hodges Tomlinson, a Max Duggan, but wow, that's bad. 10, Texas Tech. You get the same treatment as TCU here, a team that I expected to be a dark horse candidate preseason who has bottomed out in this league. Not only did you have a terrible non-conference, losing to Wyoming, being on the precipice of beating an Oregon team that's pretty good, but you didn't, and there are no moral victories in Big 12 standings, and now you just lay eggs. You go to BYU, and injuries or not, right? TCU's working on a freshman quarterback, and Kansas State's played a freshman quarterback, and Baylor went out and played a freshman quarterback, and every team in this league is dealing with key injuries. Iowa State's on a backup quarterback at 4th overall in Big 12. I just can't give it to you, Texas Tech, at 10 right now. Joey McGuire, maybe he's a really good car salesman, but the whole football thing has not worked out this year. 11, Houston. Way to play Texas close. Can't justify any movement for Houston. They still stick at 11. Can't bring you above Texas Tech. UCF at 12. You could argue that UCF should not be above Baylor because I haven't mentioned Baylor yet, but I think UCF's going to be a 12 here for me after a close loss to Oklahoma. Again, I can't justify moving them up too much. Can't justify moving them down after what I consider to be a really solid week, or Gus Malzahn's poor clock management and bad play calling at the end lost them a football game and the referees. Baylor at 13. Now this is a little weird. Baylor has multiple Big 12 wins now. Multiple Big 12 wins. They could go to a bowl game. It's not impossible, but I have at 13. Still not a believer in Baylor. They were outplayed by Cincinnati. Cincinnati had over 300 rushing yards against the Bears. The Bearcats just don't know how to win right now in Big 12 play, and they fall at 14, but not last place. No, 14th for Cincinnati because 15th, that's right, where the ACC now have added in a 15th team, BYU during the day. BYU during the day is not good. The offense is bad. The defense is worse. And honestly, BYU at night, the offense is not stellar. It's opportunistic. BYU is opportunistic as a football team. Are they dangerous? Are they scary? Yes, but only because they make the big play when it matters. BYU at night, 7th. BYU in the day, 15th in the Big 12 power rankings. At 1, Oklahoma. 2, Texas. 3, Kansas State. 4, Iowa State. 5, Oklahoma State. 6 is Kansas. 7, BYU at night. That's your 1 through 7, the top half of the Big 12. In the back, number 8, West Virginia. 9, TCU. 10, Texas Tech. 3 teams that are on a disappointing decline right now. 11, Houston after a pretty good couple of weeks. 12, UCF. Skin of your teeth. 13, Baylor, maybe a little too low for a team with 2 Big 12 wins. 14, Cincinnati, and 15, day BYU. Coming up, Kendall Briles, TCU. Is it time to oust that guy? This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the place that I go to find last-minute tickets, lowest prices, all the time, because I love to go see the Texas Rangers play baseball games. Now, look, I'm recording this before the Rangers-Astros game that occurred last night, so I don't know if I get to do that again. But when I need those Rangers tickets, first place I go is Game Time, especially late, because at Game Time, you can take all the frustrating parts of ticket buying out and find cheap tickets last minute. Browse through the Game Time app right now and find flash deals, zone deals, last minute tickets, and views from all the seats in the venue. So Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Those zone deals are great too. You just pick a section, bam, game time for cheap. Save a lot of money on that as well. 18% savings when you do a zone deal. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account with redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the place that I go to make money. At Game Time, I spend a little bit of money for tickets. At Prize Picks, I make money. I pick two little props, just two little, hey, I'm going to have Saquon Barkley over 60 rushing yards. I'm going to have Daniel Jones over 220 passing yards. I throw them in there. And right now, you at Prize Picks can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Simple to play. Make sure you submit picks every day and do it in less than 60 seconds. Like I go in and just like start my morning. Like, oh, nice prop. I'll throw it in there for college football, the NFL. Most of the NFL, Justin Jefferson, less than 100 yards. Bing. Lamar Jackson, 1 passing touchdown. Bing. That's what I do. Also, a reboot policy on your entries. Even if one of your players gets injured for NFL games, college football, top 25 matchups, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and they don't return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only site that I know of that does that too. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100 at PrizePicks. Kendall Briles, TCU. So I want to take you back to a couple of months ago when this, I say that it was like 8 months ago when this move is made, and they post the graphic, TCU does, knowing that a lot of fans are going to be upset because of how many years TCU has rightfully, as a rival of Baylor, ragged on the name Art Briles, ragged on the name Briles. Everyone in the conference has given ample mess to Baylor University and the Briles name. Deservedly so. Like that name Briles in college football is one that is forever marred because of negligence. Because there were things that happened, and I'll get to this in the later segment too about Art Briles and Baylor. There were things that happened at Baylor University that Art knew about, that he had information about, players that's come out that he knew they were bad apples, and they did some really terrible things to women and weren't punished to a full extent. They weren't given, like, it would be a Kaz Kazadi, who also works at TCU, by the way, the strength and conditioning coach, would help punish players who had done things that weren't deserving of more push-ups. They weren't deserving of throwing a couple of dumbbells up an extra time or two, but were deserving of not only being kicked off the team, but having legal action taken against these players. And Kendall Briles knew about a lot of this. Kaz Kazadi knew about a lot of this. Art Briles. So I was told by a source from Baylor when this happened, they said, you know what? What strikes him about this, nothing happens in a program without the head coach knowing. There's not a rogue staffer. There's not a rogue group of people who hear X, Y, and Z happen and they don't bring it to the head coach, because every assistant is looking for a way up. They're looking for that upward mobility. They don't want to just harbor something, a scandal within, and just, I'm going to keep this a secret and it's going to fall on me. No, they always bring it to the head coach. And the head coach just has a pulse on what happens in their program. I believe the same case was true with Baylor. And I don't think Kendall Briles is innocent. But Art Briles got to be a scapegoat in that way. He got to take attention away from the assistant coaches in that way. He wasn't an innocent scapegoat, but he took the brunt of it, the whole of it, so that his kin, Jeff Lebby, his son, Kendall Briles, his friend, Kaz Kazadi, could continue to coach elsewhere. And TCU, what they did is they decided, you know what? Let's do it. Let's take all of this moral high ground that we got by virtue of Baylor's colossal mistake, throw it out the window and hire the guy with the last name Briles. It is worth it to us to take this guy with shoddy character, bring him on our staff, let him coach at TCU, because we're going to win football games. And you know what? Two things here. One, wasn't worth it. Whether you're going to win football games or not, still not worth it. TCU especially, to have that guy named Briles on your staff. Second most, it didn't work because you're not winning football games. The offense is one of America's worst in the red zone. You've moved the football decently. Chandler Morris never looked peak. Josh Hoover looked good 1 week and they got spit out, eaten alive against Kansas State the next. The same Kansas State team that gave up 30 points to UCF at home. Yeah. Like you weren't playing Alabama and scored 3 points. You weren't playing Georgia and scored 3 points. You were playing Kansas State and Manhattan. Had you scored 14 points, you'd still be getting scolded. You didn't. You didn't come in double digits of 14 points this weekend. Was it worth it to do this in the beginning before Kendall Briles was bad? No. Is it worth it now? Still no. The red zone offense is terrible. Drives stall out. It looks lackluster. It's like there is tempo or this relative sense of urgency with no completion. Nothing ever comes to fruition of the offense. There's no cohesion here. Even players have talked about how they need to figure out what this offense even is. I think that's good. I think that's worth it, having a guy named Briles. And again, I'm going to get into later in the show how that last name, how there's so much that should fall on more than just Art Briles. That should fall on Kendall, the same guy that wrote his dad's initials across his fingernails. And I've said it, look, if you've got family members who've done bad things before who you still love, it doesn't condone their action to still love that, but it's a natural thing that, oh, wow, it's my dad. He made a terrible, gross mistake. He did something deliberately that was wrong. That's my dad. It's tough. That's tough to balance. But the way this is played out, what went down? You made a decision. You made a decision to hire Kendall Briles, and karma is a beach. Hope it's working out for you. It's not. It's not. This was completely, wholly unnecessary for TCU. Now you're paying for it. And if I have TCU on my schedule the rest of this way, I'm not upset. I'm not scared. I'm not scared about what TCU brings now. It's disappointing for me, someone who dated a girl for 2 years who went to TCU, went to the national championship wearing a TCU jersey despite being a Baylor student. You know how terrible and shallow that is? But I came to love, I came to appreciate TCU while at a rival school, especially that legendary run. And now I look and say, you didn't have to do this to yourself. That was piss poor decision-making. And the sooner Kendall Briles is gone, the sooner I believe TCU will start to win. What about that guy, Art Briles? This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Athletic Brewing Company is near beer. It's where I go to get all of my non-alcoholic brews. Look, I love to drink all of the time. My mom's listening. Non-alcoholic beers. They taste just like a normal beer, like a normal alcoholic beer. They're award-winning, great tasting, and they beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. They brew 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, golden sours, and more, constantly releasing a limited edition experimental styles to add to their variety, fit for all times, like working out, tackling work, going to your big game or your kids' game. No hangovers ever. Find Athletic Brewing in-store, online, the best bars around the country. I love their sours. Stupid good. Use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order at athleticbrewing.com. Athleticbrewing.com. Locked on at checkout for 15% off. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. So Art Briles' case was dismissed this week. He's completely innocent. He did nothing wrong, right? No. No, not even close. We've got to look deeper into this. There have been at least 24 very, very serious allegations, 50 plus overall allegations that are still being sifted through. And here is one of them. Now, what we've got here is a case of a player, domestic violence, who was right, who was wrong, Dolores Lozano, who's been fighting this case in multiple cases with the law revolving around Baylor for years. And it said that Art Briles, the Baylor football coach at the time, and Ian McCaw were two guys that were not, was no negligence here, that these guys are good to go. Art Briles' attorney coming out and saying that, this is wild, coming out and saying he is innocent entirely and did nothing wrong. Now, that's a big step. Art Briles is paying his attorney to say that. But with this, what I think we all need to wrap our head around, this doesn't mean that Art Briles is overall innocent or overall did nothing wrong. Legally, he's innocent in this case with Dolores Lozano. Briles said here's one thing I want to bring up to make it a little more Big 12 holistic. Briles said a majority of team disciplinary issues were handled within the department. That's not good. Adding the former strength and conditioning coordinator, Kaz Kazadi, would handle most of the minor issues by assigning players extra weight or running. What a weird thing to hear. Like, hey, coach, there are some things, some sexual assault, some domestic violence, some bad stuff brought up in your program. And somewhere along this conversation, it's brought up that Kaz Kazadi would punish players for, even minor stuff. I don't know exactly what the details of that are. Doesn't sound great, right? The current TCU coach, Kaz Kazadi. Weird. And that's what brings me to, from Jeff Lebby to Art Briles, to Kendall Briles, to Kaz Kazadi. There were so many people who were involved in this in the worst way. Art Briles was, hear me out here, hear me out in full. He was the fall guy, a guilty fall guy. He fell, deservedly so, but other people should have followed with him. There should have been repercussions, legitimate, serious repercussions for Kendall Briles, for Jeff Lebby, for Kaz Kazadi. There should be some kind of career, I don't know if stain's the right word, but a vetting process of, look at these guys who are in the thick of this. You think that they knew nothing? I don't think that Art Briles had a direct grasp, a direct pulse guiding players through processes of assault and domestic violence. But it's obvious there were assistant coaches who were in the weeds, who were in the trenches with this kind of stuff, who were trying to bury things. That's obvious. I mean, this isn't a string of dozens of women who are just altogether lying. And there have been cases that have proven true, both with the football program and on campus. And this, it just goes to show Baylor as an institution was terribly negligent. That, you know what? There were probably some cases of assault where Art Briles followed the rules that Baylor had lined out for him that were terrible, an abomination, abhorrent, asinine, that Baylor did not have the correct rules and regulations in place for Art Briles to bring those forward. Does that change the fact that Art Briles should have done further, that Art Briles should have gone to authorities, that Art Briles should have brought these things up to powers outside of Baylor to get men who had done horrific things arrested, off the team, thrown in jail? This isn't extra weights, extra running, extra punishment with Kaz Kazadi. This is jail time. Should that have happened no matter the university standard? Yes. Baylor failed. Top down, from Ken Starr, the president, to Ian McCaw, who's the AD at Liberty right now, to Art Briles, who is the head football coach who failed women across campus, women everywhere, to Kendall Briles, to Kaz Kazadi, two guys who are on staff at TCU, to Jeff Lebby, who's on staff at Oklahoma. This goes a lot deeper than Art. It goes to those that are still in this conference, that are still coaching on the sidelines, who never really had to answer for what they did, who never really had to have people dig into their lives and see what they did. That Art Briles could just be the, hey, look, we'll give you settlement money. You'll be the guy that takes the fall for this. Makes me think, would Art Briles have taken all that money, had taken all of what the Baylor Regents gave him in this, if it wasn't his son and his son-in-law involved? If he didn't know that he was going to get $15 million just to be, oh, it was me, I did, all right, sweet. Hey, here's you kind of get to, we get to take you down. Art Briles did this, we fire him. All the people you love get to stay clean. You can understand why he did that, But talk about guys like I mentioned, those assistants that didn't ever have to answer for this. Briles isn't innocent over the course of 50 cases. He didn't do what those women deserved. He didn't treat those women as they deserved to be treated. He did not. What he did was gross. Yeah. It demeaned women. It overlooked women who were worse than hurt. Their lives were forever altered, if not ruined. And he just kind of let it happen. That's not good. And he's feeling the repercussions of that. Why aren't others? Something to chew on today. Hey, thanks for making it first listen every single day. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? I'll be here. This has been, it always will be, Locked On. Thanks for making your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.